great information for you tonight. We're going to open up the presentation with Mr. Scott Klein, Division Chief for Hoodland Fire District. He'll be followed by Chuck Redmond, our incident meteorologist with the National Weather Service. Then we're going to get an operations briefing from Mr. Isaac Pounding. He's an operations section chief with Great Basin Team 1. Then we'll hear from Daniel Neibauer. He is the interim director for the Clackamas County Disaster Management Group. Then we have Miss Meta Lofsgarden from she's our forest supervisor from the Mount Hood National Forest. She's got some information for you. We'll follow that with Mr. Evans Quo, our incident commander for Great Basin Team 1. I want to thank you for being here. I want to please ask you to hold your questions until the end. What we find quite often is that a question that you want to ask right at that moment, the next speaker may come up and answer it for you. So again, please hold your questions till the end. We'll have a question and answer period, after which we'll break off and we'll go to the mats around the room, and we'll stay here and answer questions until you folks are happy. So with that said, please welcome Mr. Scott Klein.
First off, I want to thank everybody for showing up. A little more breathing room from last Monday's meeting with 250 plus people. The Hoodland Fire District is working as a cooperator with the incident management team on this fire. We still have one of our water tenders, which is a 3,000-gallon water truck, working under one of the divisions on the fire. Myself, our other division chief of operations, Brian Henricks, we've been attending the cooperators meetings, and then if you've been following the community Facebook page, you've probably seen my post daily as I get information, talking with the information group. I'm trying to disseminate it across, and then I have my office staff also doing our webpage and our Hoodland Fire Facebook page as well. But tonight, I want everybody, we've got a great lineup of people to give more information. At the end of it, we do have maps spread around. We'll be breaking off into little groups, and that's where you can get some one-on-one with all sorts of us who may have the answer to your questions. So I will hand it off.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody, or evening. My name is Chuck Redmond, Weather Service Boise, and I am the incident meteorologist on this fire. And so, you know, why in the heck is someone from the Weather Service on a fire? Anybody have an idea? You know, you got BLM, you got Forest Service, BIA, a whole bunch of different fire agencies, but what in the world does the Weather Service come here? You know, so we're here for, we make our own weather. We forecast the weather we want, but the fire does create its own weather. But so think about what creates and what affects the fire. You have the fuel, you have weather, and you have topography. So that's the three things that affect fire behavior. So the fuels changes for the most part. The topography usually doesn't change day to day, but the weather does. You go to different parts of the fire, you may have winds from a different direction. Temperatures might be different. Humidities may be different. The aspects, north side of the drainages, usually colder, more moist. But anyways, so that's what we're here for. We provide the decision support for the team. Hey, cold front's gonna be coming through, rain's coming through, thunderstorms coming through. But we also do not just decision support for the team, but we're also out here for firefighter safety. Again, same reasons. Hey, thunderstorms are coming through. Give them a call on the radio. hey, the thunderstorm's, 30 miles away. It's coming beeline right for the fire. So we give them a heads up so they can react to the weather that's going to be affecting them. So again, the decision support for the team and for the firefighters. Firefighter safety is the main reason we're out here. So what's the weather going to be like here the next few days? We've had a pretty dry spring, pretty dry summer. We did have some thunderstorms move through earlier. Some steady rain, dropped about, 1.5 inches of rain over the last few days we've been here. But right now, what the forecast is looking like is basically just seasonal temperatures. Not a lot of wind. The temperatures right now, low 70s for highs, right on 50 for lows. That's kind of what we're looking at. Just a gradual warming trend the next couple days. By the weekend, be a little bit above normal. Humidity is going to be slowly drying out over the next couple days, just gradually. And then by the end of the weekend, and in the next week, low pressure that's off the coast is going to be pushing towards the coast. So it's going from that warming trend back to kind of that dry, cooler temperatures by the next week. So warming things up to above normal here by the weekend, and then cooling things back down with maybe a little bit of stratus trying to come in, that marine layer trying to come in, cool us off, and bring the humidities up. So we're not looking for any big cold front coming in, any big winds. Right now, no thunderstorms, at least into next week. And also looking at the dreaded E word, the east winds, not seeing those at all, really for the next 2 weeks. So westerly flow, cool marine air coming in and keeping those humidities up. So, pretty quiet weather for the most part. That's what we've been telling the team for the last several days, briefing the firefighters on what to expect. So any questions for me, I'll be available off the side. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Isaac Bounty, Operations Section Chief with Great Basin Team 1. So just going to provide a little update where we've been, where we're currently at, and where we're going. I am going to take you guys for a little flight today, so I hope I don't make anybody airsick as we go through the flight. But what it'll do is give you guys a real good visual of what we're dealing with out there on the line. So I'm going to start off talking about what we're doing on the north end, what we're calling the Division Alpha. We've had the Portland Fire folks have come in, all the infrastructure around both of the reservoirs, and have put structure protection stuff around all that infrastructure, the headworks, the cabins up north, and so forth. So that's all ready to go at this point if there is a need for that equipment. Moving up into Division Alpha, which is on this north end of the fire itself, you can see there's a lot of stuff on the roads up there. Basically what we're trying to do out there is provide opportunity that if something does go bad, we have somewhere else to pick it up. So you can see our initial line that we have chose was the 12 road, which is this road right here. We've prepped that 12 road way out here about 4 miles out to the east. And what I mean by prep, we brought in some equipment, removed the brush, the timber that's along that road to where we have a high possibility to hold that road if we need to hold that road. And as you can see, some of our containment, which is along this road here, is what we've been able to contain over the last few days. Yes, Mother Nature's been on our side, and we do appreciate that. I do wish the weather guy could make weather for us, but that's not the case. And one of the things we're doing, you kind of see a big old hole right here, the edge of the fire there, that's not filled in yet. We've been waiting for favorable weather to burn that stuff out. Reason for that is that country in there, and you'll see when we go for the flight, it's not very firefighter friendly country in there. So we're waiting for that to happen through there. Moving over into Division Kilo. Oh, I'm sorry, let me back up again. You can see other roads like the 1211 road up to the north of the 12 road. We prepped that as well. That's ready to go if we do need that road. as well as a couple other roads like the Lookout Road that goes across there. Provides us opportunities to grab the fire if need be. So now moving up, we'll go on a real quick flight. Yeah. All right, here we go. So really when I was talking about the 12 road, that's this road that's right here. And basically what you're seeing is one of our infrared photos from the airplane, providing us information of where the heat. As you can see, there's still heat out there. It's deep duff, deep fuels, and it's holding some heat out there. But we're feeling real good about a lot of this stuff along the edge. The yellow's isolated heat, where the red is, other pieces of heat that they can find. The good news is there's not a lot of what we call intense heat, like you may see in the shaded red down here in the corner here. But you can see as far as when I'm gonna make you sick here. You can see how steep the slope is as I go around. Whoa. That's why I'm not a pilot. Okay, so right here gives a pretty good idea of how steep this slope is, as well as how dense the fuel's there. That's one of the mature stands that are out there. And you could kind of get a really good idea as we go over into kilo, and we'll talk about kilo here in a sec. But you can see where there's a different shade over here, which is the younger growth trees that are out there. That's our new growth. We like fighting fire in that stuff versus the heavier stuff. Go ahead and go back to the map. So over here in Division Kilo, as I mentioned before, our original intent was to take and use this 12 road all the way out here to the east. But due to Mother Nature, she was on our side for a little bit. And what we've done is we've actually put the squeeze on the fire. We went in there what we call direct, meaning we have firefighters right on the edge of the black. We were able to put some machinery, some heavy equipment in there, and get across this piece safely. Firefighters felt good about that. So we were successful at that. So now what we're doing is we're using the 1210 road, which is this road system out here. And as you can see, we're holding that fire on that road right now. That 1210 road's been prepped all the way around. There's a little bit of snagging, cutting down the big dead trees out there that we're still getting accomplished further out in this eastern side. But we're feeling real good about that. We do have water all along the tan line and machine line. So they do have hose out there. And what they're starting to do in some places where it's safe to do so is they're starting to do mop up. Stirring the dirt, taking all the heat out of the fire and putting it out. It's the dirty job. That's what we're doing over in Division Kilo. And if we go back to the flight, you can kind of see the pieces that we're taking advantage of as far as the vegetation goes. Might be hard to see from way back there, but. So now, if you're looking out over in this, you can see this country out here is in that mature timber that's out there. We've had firefighters looking at that daily, even with the rain. There's a lot of snags out there. It's steep country, which is all up, and this is the Cedar Creek drainage. We don't want to put firefighters out in there right now. So we're keeping a good eye on that. The fire's not moving in there, but it still is burning. But we're trying to figure that piece out as time goes on. Obviously, our priorities have been the south and the west at this point, and the north. All right, back to the map. So moving down into Division Papa, which is the southern edge of the fire. I believe last time we were here, we were talking about prepping the 14 road, which is this road along the south edge. That prep has all been done. Machinery's been through there. It's been snagged, and it's got hose all the way across that, as well as a piece of indirect hand line that goes down this real steep slope here. That's also been prepped, ready to go. It's got water. It's got sprinkler systems on it in case that we need to use that. The good news is Mother Nature once again has helped us out. We were able to get crews engaged on this little, what we call a horseshoe. and they went in there direct yesterday. They got that tied in yesterday afternoon. Today they're putting water, laying hose and so forth out across that line as well. So we're feeling real good about that. And now, as of this afternoon or this morning, we've got a crew in here looking at that steeper section right there. It's slow going, it's steep country. They're taking small bites at a time in there, and we're hoping that they're going to have that accomplished here this afternoon or midday tomorrow. That too will also get hose and sprinklers down that particular flank as well. So we're being optimistic here that we're going to be able to grab that edge there. Additionally, over in Division Papa on the south end, the 440 road, we were able to get dozers and equipment along that road on the south side there, and provides us with another holding feature or another opportunity if this fire does decide to start moving south. As you can see, we got one here and one here at this point, and we'll get into contingency a little bit, but we'll take you on another little flight here so you can kind of see the road system that we're working off of right now. So this is that dozer line I just mentioned, equipment line that's right there. They've got that all the way out to the end, and as you can see, that's right on the edge of what we call the friendlier fuels there. It's not in the old growth. And then this is the 14 road. But I want to point out, what these guys are going down right now is this steep slope right now. Again, slow going, but things are going real well in there. All right, we'll go back to the map. As far as our contingency group, which is to the south, we want to make sure if something does go bad, we have other opportunities out here. So what we have done is we've treated the 14 road or prepped the 14 road all the way down to the 1414 road, which is this road that heads out to the east. We call it the pigtail because there's a little pigtail in there. But that is mostly prepped all the way across there. We are still moving fuels and timber out of the way, and then we'll put crews in there to follow up behind those folks. Everything's looking real good across that, and there's other contingency lines that have been put in that will help us provide other opportunities to grab this fire if something does happen. We still have folks out here scouting out, looking at other opportunities to be what we call stitch it together, connect the dots, if you will, if something doesn't go our way. So right now we're feeling pretty good about where we're sitting and all this. And if you have questions, we'll answer questions at the end. All right, that's what the bosses tell me to do.
Thank you. I'm Daniel Neibauer, Clackamas County Disaster Management, and we've been working very close with the incident management team and watching all the efforts they've been putting into, and have every confidence that they're going to stop the fire as they're planning to do. But my job's to be, if that doesn't happen, and what planning are we doing for that? So last time I was here, we talked about one evacuation zone and some management action point that we had planned for that. Since then, we've established another one to the west, and we've done some other kind of tentative contingency ones depending if this fire goes. So we have evacuation zones and decision points all planned out to be able to look for that and have that evacuation planning going. Also, and I think we're a little unclear last time we were here, alerting wise, we are working on alerting. We have multiple alerting methods to use from the EAS system that was mentioned last time. That is an option, not one that we use commonly, but it is an option. We have the public alerts option. If you haven't signed up for public alerts, please do. There's postcards in the back that can facilitate you do that. And there's a wireless emergency alert system that we have. We use all of those to notify you as alerts. We also have Facebook relationships with media, social media, other ways to alert you. So we have multiple ways to do alerting. So we have alerting templates figured out, messaging completed if it does occur there. So we will get that message out to you quickly. Shelter planning, we have shelter planning for community members as well as livestock planned out. We've got staffing plans for all those complete. For anyone who has additional needs, we have a location for those individuals. We have equipment pre-staged, purchased, all ready to go to open those up, agreements and relationships in place with all of those locations. We also have established an evacuation resource center. So if we do evacuations, a nearby center that you can go to pick up information or other resources that you may need if evacuations are occurring. So we've been doing all that. We've been working with messaging. We're here tonight. We are at those information pop-ups if you have any questions later on, where county and disaster management staff can be there to help answer those. So just a little update. We've been continuing working since we've seen you. I do want to take a little bit of time to introduce the Mount Hood Corridor Wildfire Partnership. And the goal is to do wildfire mitigation and reduce wildfire risk within the Mount Hood Corridor. And I know there are some folks here today that are members or agencies that are participating. If you are, can you raise your hand or just stand up? So if you take a look around, there are a lot of people in this room that are participating in that. After this meeting, in the back corner where the man with a hat, Jeremy, if you can raise your hand one more time, is standing. The partnership will meet over there. Please join them, learn about the partnership, the efforts that they're doing. As a bonus, you'll learn about a film festival that's going on in Timberline Lodge for that as well. But please go ahead back there and meet up with them. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Maida Lofsgarden. I'm forest supervisor here on the Mount Hood, the best forest in the region, and glad to come and talk to you a little bit about what's going on with the fire. First thing I want to do is give a huge shout out again to this incident management team. We are incredibly lucky to have the folks that we have here, the expertise that we have. I think you've seen it in the presentations from Isaac. Again, I agree, his flight skills maybe not so much, but his operation skills are outstanding. So we again we are very lucky and very privileged to have this group with us and helping us on this fire. The weather is helping, but these folks are just doing a phenomenal job. I want to spend a minute and talk about, we've heard about line prep and what's going on there. I'm gonna take you on a little bit of a story of what I'm seeing up there as force supervisor and not as a firefighter, and just talk to you about what we're seeing and then talk about what you're going to be seeing down here on the 26 corridor in the near future. So you could pull up just the fire map. So I've had an opportunity over the last few days to take a couple of trips out there and spend some time looking specifically at those areas that we're talking about. And these guys do a great job of talking about, you know, we're doing line prep, we're taking out some trees, it's steep ground, we're working in steep areas, we're concerned about firefighter safety. I want to give just an example over here on this hand line. So your own zigzag hotshot crew was working up there on that hand line. And I had a chance to take firefighter training this summer, and I got to dig a hand line, and it was on a piece about as flat as this. Best workout that I got. I went out and stood up on the road above where they were working. They were about 50 feet down the line from me. And at 50 feet down the line, I could have just about dropped a candy bar down for them to catch. So 50 feet down the line, just about straight down the hill. So when they're talking about steep, the flight really helps. But when you're out there looking at it, these guys are operating in some incredibly steep territory. There's a lot of things they have to pay attention to in terms of firefighter safety, making sure our folks are taken care of, making sure we've got the mitigations in place. When they start talking about these lines and start talking about prepping the lines, I mean, some of it's pretty common, right? We know there's a lot of brush along the roads that needs to get taken out. That's something that can be a ladder fuel that starts to get us to the bigger trees and starts to get us up to the really big ones. So that's a piece of it. And then there are the small trees out there that kind of sit in that middle ground. But the other thing, you all know this as you drive out into some of these areas, these roads aren't wide, right? We're not talking about a 2-lane road with a bicycle lane on it. We're talking about 1-lane roads that are used for Portland Water Bureau's work. You look up in this forest and you see that those trees are touching across the top, right? So we have an amazing place to start from with a paved road. That is an incredible advantage. and it's not enough if that fire is starting to move across. It's not enough to catch those ladder fuels as they're going up, and we have to get some spacing up there in the canopy. So if something does go up, we've got a way to make sure that it's not getting across to the other side. So in that process, to make a short story long, in that process, there are some trees that are being cut. We at the Forest Service and the Portland Water Bureau have been working really, really closely with this team, and they have a ton of respect for this watershed to make sure that we are doing as light a touch as possible, but making sure that we're keeping firefighters safe, that we're looking out for snags, that we're making sure that when we're doing all of this work, it's actually going to benefit the fire, right? We're going to be able to hold those lines. So as we go out there, we've given limits on the size, so they're not looking at old growth trees. You guys know what an old growth tree looks like. That's not what these guys are working on. They're working in the area, but they're looking at those smaller trees, and they're taking them down. Sometimes they can chip that, put it back in the forest. Sometimes on those hand lines, they can drop it down, leave it there. But it's a fuel, right? And so they've been taking some of those logs and stacking them up along the sides of the road. Doing a good job of keeping it clean, doing a good job of keeping as small amount of those as possible. And those are sitting in some landings right around where these roads are. We don't want to be digging out a bunch more landings, right? This is the Bull Run watershed. So we don't want to be putting more flat places for these trees to go as they get set up. So at a certain point in time, what you get is a pinch point, right? So you've got some logs stacked over here. You've got the fire that you're trying to protect over here. And if something happens, you just added a fuel source on that side. And firefighters being able to turn around, that's a challenge, right? Because you've taken some of those corners. So all of that to say, we're going to start moving some of those trees out of the fire area. So you guys here on 26, you're going to start to see some log trucks moving down the road with some of the trees that have been cut out of the forest and are moving along. We're going to be stacking those. But we wanted to let you know because that's going to be a shift. You know, this has been happening when we showed how many miles away from all of us. This has been happening a lot of miles away from us in a watershed that isn't public access. So you're now going to start to see some of the results of that work. Those trees are going to be moving out of the fire. We're going to be stacking them down here on the Zigzag Ranger District. And then the next question that comes up is, well, what the heck are you going to do with them after that, right? Those of you who've been around here for a long time, you know that commercial logging is not allowed. It's not statutorily not allowed in the Bull Run watershed. This is not a commercial logging operation, right? This is a fire suppression effort. And we want to be really true to the intent of that law as we bring that wood off the forest. So we're going to be working with a team with the Portland Water Bureau, with others around the community to really figure out how we can use that wood in the future for things that benefit the community, things that benefit our tribal partners, things that might benefit access to the forest, that might benefit fish and wildlife habitat. So things that really make sense. This is a community that surrounds the Bull Run watershed, and we want to make sure that the trees that are coming off are put to good community use. So just wanted to give you an update, one from my kind of layperson's perspective of what it looks like out there and the really tough terrain these guys are working in. And again, what you're going to be seeing coming down the road in the next few days and weeks. And we will continue to keep you posted as we learn more about how much that is, what it looks like, and what we'll be doing with that those trees after. So thanks a bunch. Thanks again to the team.
Well, good evening, everybody. How are you all doing this evening? Thank you for joining us. So I just wanted to summarize a few things that you may have heard this evening. It's still our intent to fight this fire aggressively as possible to keep it small. And the primary reason for that is we recognize there's a lot of values around the fire. And I'm not just talking about the watershed that for the Portland Bureau, but also the roughly 15,000 people that live in fairly close proximity to this fire, all the utilities, the highway, the travel. There's a lot of values out there. So our management direction from the agencies that we're working for, the Forest Service, the Oregon Department of Forestry, and the Bureau of Land Management, is to fight this fire aggressively, keep it as small as possible. And to that end, they haven't really put any restrictions on us. As you heard Meta mention, we're using quite a bit of heavy equipment out there. We're doing some ground disturbance, even though it's the watershed, but the whole goal is to keep the fire small. So we're trying to use all the tools in the tool shed. The one tool we're trying not to use, if we don't have to, is retardant, just because of the potential impact those chemicals may have on the drinking water supply. So just to recap what our intentions are is we still want to keep the fire from going north, and quite a bit of effort is going on with that, using a combination of direct and indirect fire line control. We want to keep the fire from going west, and again, we're working on that pretty steep hillside on the west side, right up in this area. And then lastly, the other thing is we want to keep the fire from going south, and again, using a combination of direct and indirect, using the 14 road system. The one head scratcher is going to be that east side. It's some pretty challenging terrain, pretty challenging fuels in that Cedar Creek drainage up in here, and then also the South Fork of the Bull Run. They're just two fairly narrow, deep drainages with very heavy fuels, but we do have that road network, the 1210 road that goes all the way around, and that's been prepped. In the event we had to use that's the control line we would use for an indirect firing operation. We're kind of reluctant to do that because it doubles the size of the fire, and we know we're going to get some erosion and sedimentation off this fire anyway. And so the idea is, well, if we double the size of the fire, we're probably going to double or potentially double the amount of erosion sedimentation that can come out of there. And if the fire doubles in size, then that also increases the risk that things may get out of hand at some point, go south or go southeast, jump some roads. So we're taking a very hard look at how we approach the east side, but there's not a lot of good options in there, I'm afraid to say. We've been studying it quite a bit. So one of the things that the weather that Chuck mentioned, it really gave us quite a bit of time to be able to really dive down into this fire and look at what's the best approach. It slowed things down. We caught anywhere from 3/4 to an inch of rain, I think, depending on the location. And it was really the best kind of rain to get. It persisted for kind of like anywhere from a light drizzle to a little, heavier pitter-patter rain for about 72 some odd hours. And then a couple days later, we got another 1/4 inch of rain. So imagine, that low slong duration rain. It really was able to soak in there and penetrate. Because just think about it. If you took a bucket of water and you threw it on the ground, what happens? A lot of it splashes off, and some of it hits your target, some of it goes everywhere, and then it runs off. But if you were to slowly pour that water onto something that you wanted to get wet, that slow pour, it really allows it the time to penetrate, and you don't waste as much of that water. So getting, inch of rain over a course of 3 days was probably the best possible type of rain to get. We don't like the sudden flash flood rain, you get a 1/2 inch of rain in an hour, because a lot of what happens, it just runs off. This rain allowed it to penetrate, which was great for the firefighting effort. As Chuck mentioned, now we're starting to return to more seasonal conditions around here. Nice days, nice fall days, 70, 80 degrees, maybe on the high end, some nice westerly flow, nothing too crazy on the winds. But you notice the days are getting shorter. The nights are also cooling off quite a bit more, and in the mornings, the fog and the dew is sticking around a lot longer. So what that's essentially doing is it's shortening up the burn days, and the amount of time that the fire can actually. Every morning the fire has to recover from that overnight humidity and the dew and the cooler temperatures. May not actually warm up until 10 or 11 o'clock, depending on elevation. The higher up you go, maybe a little bit later. And then it starts cooling off a lot sooner when the sun starts going down. So as opposed to earlier in the summer where you may have had maybe 10, 12, 14 hours of good burning condition, now we're starting to get less than 12, less than 10. And the farther into September we go, the days keep getting shorter. So all of this is actually working in, well, not just our favor, but your favor, because you folks live here, and you'll be here after we leave. So all of this gave us a really good window of opportunity. And what I heard Chuck say is also we have not seen any signs in the forecast of high wind events, especially the bad wind that we don't want, the east winds, because that brings very dry conditions. We haven't seen that in the forecast. Could it occur later on in September? Yeah, absolutely. And so a lot of our planning that we're doing, including the contingency planning, all the additional road prep, outside the area, not just in the immediate vicinity of the fire. All the work that we're doing with Clackamas County and Multnomah County Emergency Management Office or Emergency Management Centers is it intended for the what if? What if we do get some weather pattern that sets up with a big wind event that causes the fire to do things we don't want to do? So that's what we're setting you up for. As far as our team goes, we still have another 5 or 6 days left with you. And we're hoping in that time period, we can get a lot of the fire perimeter on the south flank, the north flank, and then that northeast side buttoned up. And in which case, then really the only open flank we're leaving is what the open flank there in the Cedar Creek, and then also the South Fork of Bull Run. And so I think if we can get that done, I feel like we're actually a benefit to the community and we served you well. But a lot of it depends on the weather. So we're really hoping we get the a little bit more drying, which may sound somewhat counterintuitive, but we want it to dry out a little bit so we can actually burn the areas that we need to burn as opposed to having to go direct where it's not too safe for the firefighters. So hopefully a lot of that makes sense. Let's see, one other thing that the information officers asked me to talk to you about is if and when we do get that opportunity to resume firing operations, you're probably going to see more smoke out there. And I understand that when you see more smoke, that raises people's concerns, but you're not entirely certain, is that the smoke from our firing operations, which means it's controlled, or is that the fire doing things that we don't want it to do? So I think to our best of our ability, once the Isaacs folks start burning, they'll let us know. We'll let the PIOs know so they can put out, maybe some real-time information updates. So we can say, yep, that's us firefighters doing firefighter things, not the fire doing fire things. So with that, should I give back to you guys for the Q&A?
Thank you, sir. All right, we're going to open it up for a few questions. What we want to do, we're going to have Nikki come down with another microphone. She'll stand right here at the center of the hall. And if you would, please come up and speak into the microphone. You might be able to shout out a question and our presenters will hear it and be able to answer you. But the folks online, all they're going to hear is the answer. And answers sometimes aren't much fun if you don't know what the question was. So please work with us on that, and we'll try to get all your questions answered. Take a few from the crowd here, and then we'll break off and go to the maps, and we'll stay here as long as you need us to. Vicki?
So if you've got a question, go ahead and raise your hand. I can come to you.
I didn't hear anything about planes, helicopters dropping water. What's going on there?
We still have 2 scoopers and 3 Type 1 helicopters and a Type 3 available to us. We just haven't had to need them in the last few days because of the 3/4 inch to 1 inch of rain that we had over the 72-hour period. So, when we need them, they're available to us.
Anyone else?
And we promise not to let Isaac fly them.
After having such a wonderful relationship with you guys, I was sorry to hear you're leaving in 6 days. Could you explain that?
So firefighters over the years have had, we're limited on how long they want us out. And, the older days, we used to go out 21 days at a time and then go home for a couple days, a couple, 3 days so we can mow the lawn and be with our families, and then we could go back out again. I want to say about 20 years ago, they cut us back to about 14 days at a time. I think a number of studies found out that we start to get a little punchy after about, by the 3rd week, and the decisions we make may not always be the right decisions. So they really try to emphasize the work rest. We go out in the fires. We run a pretty intense schedule, 14 days or so thereabouts. There's always a little bit of flexibility on that end, but yeah, at some point they want to get us home rested and then on to the next fire. So. hopefully that answers your question. But what we've been working with the forest to identify is, hey, we need to order a replacement team like ours, and that order is going in, and so you're going to be getting a complex incident management team or a type 1 incident management team similar to us. It might have a different color shirt, different logo, but yeah, we all grew up playing with the same coloring books and went to all the same fire training. So.
I know you guys have closed some camps and stuff like that. The Bull Run Education Center on Thomas Road, which is on up Tenek, is that still open? I have a wilderness basic survival class coming up the end of September and want to make sure have they closed that?
I don't know that we've got anybody here this evening that can answer that question. We can certainly find out. No, it's okay. That's what we're here for. We'll get Nikki will get with you. We'll write that question down and we'll find out and we'll call you and get you an answer.
Hi, thanks for being here and all the work you're doing. My question has to do with competitive fires in the region, the West Coast, or I don't know, in Canada. But are there any things sort of on the horizon? I know you can't predict exactly, but that could take away some of the helicopters and other heavy equipment that seems to be so helpful right now.
No. The short answer is no. We have been, for most of the time we've been here, the #1 priority fire in Oregon, Washington area. So pretty much what we asked for, we got, and we got to the point where we feel like we have the right mix of resources, both aircraft as well as heavy equipment, firefighters. So I think we're sitting pretty good. You know, we're also trying to make sure we don't get greedy, because I can guarantee you of the other 10 or so large fires going on right now in the Willamette Valley, there's communities just like you asking these exact same questions, worried about the number of firefighters on their fire. So we try to share. In fact, I mean, we have a network, we have a daily coordination call every day amongst the ICs. And if I've got something that we're not, using and we can do without it for a few days and somebody else is really needing it badly, then, sometimes we can work out a trade and send them what they need, and with the expectation that when I need the help, we can put the word out and the other incident commanders will then pitch in and help us out. So we try to be within, the community. We're here to serve the American public. And so we try to do that to the best of our ability.
I know you mentioned about not using fire retardant, but can you use that on the south and east side? Isn't that far away from the water source?
Depends on where you're looking. The upper end of Cedar Creek is very heavily dissected with a lot of little, like, small tributaries or tributaries. So that would be very challenging for us to put retardant up in that country and not getting into the water system. There are locations elsewhere that retardant may help us out, and if we can find a good spot, then and the fire situation warranted it, then yeah. But right now, the fire situation has not warranted. If you've noticed, our size has not grown very much. I mean, I think when we met with you folks, we were probably, what, 1,200 acres, somewhere in there? So we've only grown about 700 acres since then. And our main goal when we first got here was try to keep it inside this 14 road network, the 12 road network, and it's still there. So all the effort that we're using with the resources, it's so far it's doing what we want it to do, and we're able to use the resources where we need it to. Retardant it's a very good tool in lighter fuels. Grass and sage, I've seen it actually stop fires because it's grass and sage fuels. In some medium-sized brush, depends. If you can put enough retardant in there, let it penetrate, it will actually really drastically slow the fire down, may sometimes even stop it. But once you start getting into timber fuels, our success rate using retardant, it tapers off. We've been studying the use of retardant for quite some time now within the agencies, just because it's a very risky operation, and we spend a ton of money on it that sometimes just does not work. And one of the conclusions of this extensive, multi-year study was that the steeper the slope, the heavier the fuels, the less effective retardant is. Right now, where we're at is we have the trifecta. We have really steep slopes, and we have very, very tall trees, and we have very heavy fuels on the ground. So the effectiveness of retardant, based on my years of experience, is it's not going to do what you're going to do out there. Now, if this was, over in Eastern Oregon, outside of Vail or Ontario, absolutely, we're in the grass and the sage. Retardant would be a very, very effective tool just because of that fuel type. So hopefully that answers your question, sir.
Hi, my question's actually for the Forest Service, and maybe a question / suggestion as a person who lives up here and we're very impacted, and many of us heat our homes with wood. I would love to see opportunities for people in the Hoodland Fire District specifically to utilize some of that that wood that had to be cut for this fire to heat our homes over the winter.
So thank you for that question. And I like that you focused it down and said, some of us will take it in Hoodland and, not outside of that. I'm just kidding. Yes, that is yeah. That's exactly part of the conversations that we're having, are like, what are the list of things between us and the Portland Water Bureau and listening to you all that we can do that really have a benefit and an impact for the community. So the team that we're putting together, we're taking input exactly like that. So I'll take that back. Really appreciate that input. And I think, I also have a wood stove where I live, and it's pretty frigid in the winter when the power goes out for 9 days, and a wood stove is really helpful. So appreciate that feedback. And I'll just say generally, these folks have my contact information. If anybody has suggestions, again, with those things in mind about how do we benefit the community and our tribal partners, how do we improve access to the forest, how do we help fish and wildlife habitat, with those things in mind, if you have ideas, share them with us. We're really interested. There's a unique opportunity here that is pretty local and in the community. So please do reach out and share those ideas.
All right, so we'll take one more question, and then we'll break out. Again, we're going to stay here. We'll go to the maps on the wall. We'll stay here as long as we need to make sure we've addressed any concerns you've got.
Thank you. My question's for the weatherman. How far in advance can you predict the wind for our area?
So good question. Our models go out 10, 15 days. And we're consistently looking every day. Are you with me? We're consistently looking out that 10 to 12 days just to get an idea of what the models are trying to suggest. And that's something we brief the team pretty much every day. It's like, hey, 10 days from now, they're showing something. And models can change, so that's just something, that's the conversation we have every day. So at least right now, 10 days out, we're not seeing anything. So, yeah.
Nick, you telling me you got one more? That's okay. That's okay.
So will this fire affect when we're able to burn outside? Is this going to say if that fire is in effect, we're not going to be able to burn outside at all? Because of course I have a summer's worth full of crap.
Yes, it has. So fire restrictions and that, basically what we look for to be able to open up burning, to be able to do backyard burning, and that is a season ending rain event. And usually that means getting up in that 2 inches or that, and that we're looking at the weather patterns that will consistently be bringing the rain. If you have burn piles, I highly recommend you cover it with plastic or a tarp at this time so that it stays dry, because we are going to wait until it really rains before we're going to go out of fire season and open up that burning. you can contact the Malala office and they can let you know when we're going to be opening that up. It'll be posted on Facebook. We'll let the fire districts know, but it's that season-ending rain event with continual rain following that. So, burn barrels, same thing. Yep, I know. So, all right.
So also to add on to that, the Hoodland Fire District website, we keep burn regulations per ODF. They send us a nice little reminder. As of 5 o'clock yesterday, we went into a moderate level. Burning still not allowed. Chainsaws are allowed till 1 p.m. with an hour fire watch. But if you go to our website at hoodlandfire.us, we have you'll see Smoky with a little arrow to where we're at. If you click on that, it will take you into the regulations. It will show what you can or cannot do at this time. It also has links to go to the Oregon Department of Forestry. They have a really nice map that you narrow in, you can click, and it will also list up the information that you need.
So the electric ones, it's combustible engines. So an electric one is allowed, and that. But what I do ask is that you be very careful because it's still friction, right? If you hit a rock, it's still going to spark and that. But our regulations only deal at this time with combustible engines with for sparks and that. So, all right, there's another question I can see. I can repeat it. That is correct. So if you want to outside a low fire danger, you can contact our office. We'll come out and inspect. The question was about using your backyard fire pit at your residence and that during fire season, and how can you utilize that outside of it being in a green or low fire danger and that. So you can contact our office at Malala, and we will send one of our engines up here. They'll inspect your area to make sure that there's plenty of clearing around it, that it's fire safe, that it's a good fire pit, that you have a hose or water source close by that can extinguish it. If we do that, then we will give you, it's not a permit, but we'll mark your location that you will have permission to do that at that time, and that so that you then have to follow the regulations. And I want to say when we go to a high, so a yellow, you're not able to use your, I think it's high. It could be extreme. I think it's high. It's yellow. So in green and blue, you can have your backyard. You can roast your marshmallows, have your s'mores, have your family gatherings. But outside of that, when we're in high and red, in extreme, you cannot have your backyard recreational fire. That is absolutely correct, that we need to go and do that. And that puts a burden, puts burden on us. But if you want to do that outside, if you want to go beyond when it's not a low fire danger, and you want to do it at that moderate level, then you need to contact us, and we need to make sure it's fire safe so that you can have that. And our staff is more than happy to come up here and do that for you so that you can have that time with your family and friends to be able to have that opportunity in the evening. So please contact the Malala office and we'll make that happen.
All right, tough crowd. Okay, we're going to go ahead and end the Facebook Live session. And we've got Matt back here in the corner. We're going to have representatives from the county who can answer questions there. Isaac is going to fly back to this other map and be available to talk to you about operations. And then outside, we will have Maida from the Forest Service on one map, pardon me, and Commander Evans Quo will be on a second map just outside the door. So thank you very much for coming. I hope we were able to answer most of your questions, and have a good evening.